See, it's reasons like this that I always hold off on doing my top 10s until like late December, just because there's always something that comes in right at the end and kind of sweeps me off my feet. So, yeah, let's talk about this one. The Magic of Sin by Arabs and Aspic. So Arabs of Aspic is kind of like a two-part band. Like they got their start in the early, like the mid to late 80s, and then kind of disbanded and then kind of reformed. And at first they were called like Arabs and Aspic 2 in like the late 90s. And they've been doing a lot of like that kind of Norwegian symphonic retro prog pretty much since then. I came on the scene with their last album of Madness and Magic that I really, really enjoyed. I love how they have their signature sound. You know, there's like this sound about them that you can immediately hear and pick up on that's different from a lot of that same kind of Norwegian retro prog. But I really enjoy how they're able to construct melodies, how they're able to construct the ebb and flows within their epics, because that was one of the things that I really, really enjoyed. This is their 7th album, and the thing that I really enjoyed about this is that it's the length of this album. It's just over 42 minutes worth of music. We've got 3 tracks, a 12-minute track, a 9-minute track, and a 20-minute track right there. Right there. That's all you needed to sell me on this one. We have the title track, The Magic of Sin, and then Down in Darkness parts 2 and 3. And I haven't been able to figure out where Down in Darkness part 1 is, so if anybody knows, let me know, because I look through all of their past discographies and I don't see the Down in Darkness part 1. So unless, The Magic of Sin just happens to be part 1, who knows? I'm not one that does. Let's actually talk about the music that's found on this piece here. The first track of The Magic of Sin, title track, has a very King Crimson feel to it. I'm feeling like Lark's Tongue and Aspic in that. I'm also feeling a lot from like the King Crimson album of Red, specifically around Starless and Bible Black, or I guess just Starless. It has that kind of root aspect to it, that slow build that track has, that builds upon itself. But what this track does is that just uses it as the jumping off point that they then carry through for the rest of the track. So yeah, they're definitely channeling a lot of the King Crimson aspect of that. And that's why these guys are both what I love and what I'm kind of tired when it comes to retro prog. Like I love when they're able to channel the forefathers, the trailblazers of the old 70s progressive rock tracks. But it also leaves me wanting a little bit more, because if I wanted to listen to those tracks, I'd honestly just go and listen to those tracks. But what they do with it is very interesting. And I love how it really carries this track through into some really interesting areas. It's always very engaging, so it's always keeping my attention, and I'm always excited to see where they want to go from there. And then we go into the 1-2 punch of Down in the Darkness 2 and 3. Down in the Darkness part 2 really is just your best Arabs and Aspic music that I've heard really up to this point. We've got a lot of things that they're laying down the groundwork for that will be reintroduced and kind of reevaluated within part 3, and I really love the journey that we go on within this 9.5 minutes. But man, it's that 20-minute epic track, Down in Darkness Part 3, that I really, really enjoy. The first, say, like 3/4 of this track is just the standout retro prog that we've come to know and love with Arabs and Aspic. But then once we get into the final quarter of this track, it does something very different. And it's one of those things that I applaud for really giving it a try, but I feel as if it's a little bit of a failed experiment, unfortunately. We have this build up at the latter half of the 3rd quarter. It's got this really satisfying climb, this really satisfying payoff. It feels like the track is starting to wind down, or at least starting to wind up for a big crescendo punch that we know that Arabs of Aspic can deliver. But instead, the track begins to wind down and we get into this very experimental soundscape that we would have from, say, a Yes, Close to the Edge or a Pink Floyd Echoes, where it's, very binaural beats almost within the earphones. It's just kind of going back and forth within the sound, and it feels as though the song should end. I feel like a lot of bands were doing these kinds of things in like the 70s with this kind of style of really experimental noise and soundscapes. Instead of it going into a final build-up and payoff, it just goes into a kind of run-of-your-mill ending, you know, a kind of a run-of-the-mill finale without any kind of build-up, without any kind of like preamble. It's just kind of there, and it feels a little bit lackluster in my ears, you know. Maybe I need a few more spins with this. Maybe I need a few more weeks with it to really get and understand. But like, I've already had about 10 listens under my belt, and I just feel as if this ending of Down in the Darkness Part 3 was a little bit of a lackluster. You know, it kind of felt like an oomph rather than a oomph. So yeah, a little bit of a disappointment, but I will still applaud the band for doing something different and for experimenting in this sense. I always love when a band is ready to experiment like this, and I will always applaud them and encourage them to do something like this, because I'd rather have a failed experiment than something that is rehashed or safe or run-of-the-mill that I've heard 1,000 times before. So yeah, it was a little bit of a disappointment at the end because, you know, everything kind of leading up to that I was really excited for, and I really wanted to hear what kind of a ending we had in store, and the ending was just kind of a womp. So yeah, the final overall thoughts that I have with The Magic of Sin was a very interesting and a very good time. You know, I love this album just as much as I love Magic and Madness from 2021. It's a great time. If you're into this style of retro prog, I think you're really going to get something amazing out of this. And as I keep saying with a lot of these retro prog outfits, there's a lot worse you can do. You know, at least this album is never boring, and they're always trying something new. Sometimes it works really well, as in the title track and the second track, and sometimes it lands a little flat, like the ending of the final track there. But you're always getting something really interesting, so I can't fault it for that. So in the end, I will say The Magic of Sin by Arabs of Aspic is one that I would ultimately download. There's enough on this to at least recommend for anybody that loves retro prog, and I would highly recommend this if you're into retro prog. I think you'll get a really good treat out of it. I don't know if I would necessarily start here if you're a newcomer to Arabs in Aspic. I might try one of their earlier albums first, but yeah, much like Motorcycle, you're never going to get something completely bad, you know, and this one is another fine track, and honestly, it might be their most mature album to this day. So that's what I've got for Magic of Sin by Arabs in Aspic. What did you guys think about this album? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, please let me know by commenting down below. Because yeah, that's all I got. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.